You tell businesses to sacrifice some profit for purpose? Hello, that's unnatural. You ask individuals to consume a little less as they are becoming richer? No. Human need is to consume. All the greenwashing that you were seeing is because we had reduced everything to a number. 5 or 6 years ago, there was a video that went viral of United Airlines staff beating up a passenger and dragging him out of the plane on a bloodied state because they thought they were upholding company policy, which technically is true. I do believe that the traditional MBA program, as we've known it, the days are numbered.
Does the modern business education need a complete revamp? Very good morning. Prantik here from TIE Talks. This morning, I have the privilege of hosting a dear friend and someone who I've sort of admired and met and learned so much about the notion of stewardship from, Mr. Rajiv Peshavaria, who's the celebrated author. He's a keynote speaker. He's spoken at various global forums. He advises Fortune 100 companies on the notion or concept of stewardship, which is what we're here to sort of unpack. And he also happens to be the CEO of Stewardship Asia Center. And, this topic is very close to our heart because, as most of you know at TIE, our sort of ethos is to foster entrepreneurship simply because we believe entrepreneurship is a force for good. And we sort of genuinely believe that entrepreneurship can or does solve for various things, whether it's employment, whether it's social change. And I think the concept of stewardship champions this notion, and we want to find out and learn more as to how all of us can do more, can we maximize profit and purpose. Rajiv, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you, Prantik.
Rajiv, I'm going to get straight to the point. The word stewardship can mean a lot of things for different people. How do you define it?
It's interesting. What we talk about at Stewardship Asia Center actually is steward leadership and not just stewardship. And I'll tell you why. Because if you think of the word stewardship, what comes to mind is somebody who takes care of you.
Yeah.
A steward on a plane.
Yeah.
Or somebody who takes care of your family's money. And the basic notion of a steward is a trustee, a caretaker. We felt that it was time to upgrade that definition. So we said stewardship in our parlance is going to be creating value by integrating the needs of stakeholders, society, future generations, and the environment. So what is then steward leadership? It is the genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future for stakeholders, society, future generations, and the environment. So make money by all means, but can you please make money as a steward leader by addressing the societal and environmental challenges that are threatening us today?
And picking on the point of make money, because you spoke about, and we've been chatting about maximizing profits, but does it come at a cost of minimizing or limiting profits? Or is it possible genuinely to maximize both parameters?
We are seeing globally a little bit of a backlash on ESG and all these other things. I think that this correction was waiting to happen for a long time. So we were trying to solve existential challenges like climate change and social inequality in unnatural ways. And you said it. You tell businesses to sacrifice some profit for purpose. Hello, that's unnatural.
Not happening.
You ask individuals to consume a little less as they are becoming richer. No. Human need is to consume. And then there are people who have consumed all their lives and created the problems, and they are now lecturing the people who are now coming up the economic ladder to consume less.
Yeah.
Unnatural. So we think that the only thing that is going to save us is profit. Because 69 of the top 100 economies in the world are companies, not countries. And we have to find profitable solutions for these challenges. And therefore, this idea that ESG and focus on these kinds of things comes at a cost of some lower profit, that is exactly the 21st century challenge. If you're a steward leader, you are saying to yourself, I want to make money, more money than anybody else, but by solving human problems. And it need not come at the sacrifice of some profit.
So that's the good news, that it is very much possible. Or in fact, that seems like that's the cornerstone of the idea. You need to be thinking of maximizing profits, and that will enable you to sort of, or the company to do good on the various parameters.
With one qualification, our mantra is maximum purpose, maximum profit.
Right.
So you maximize purpose in order to maximize profit. Blindly making money, then maybe even the mafia is very good at making money, right? That's not what we're talking about. Maximum purpose, maximum profit. And by the way, the history of wealth creation. Ultra amounts of money was made throughout history when an entrepreneur was able to put their finger on the biggest pain point of society at a given time and find a profitable solution. Now you think of the railroads with Vanderbilt, you think about Rockefeller, where you think about JP Morgan, you think about Andrew Carnegie. All of these people found a pain point and found a profitable solution. And they made huge amounts of money. Today's biggest pain points are climate change, social inequality, and cyber vulnerability, to name just a few.
Yeah.
So these are the pain points, and huge amounts of money is waiting to be made. And yes, it's possible. We are now tracking about 600 companies that are doing it globally.
Love that notion. And let's deep dive into a lot of these things that you just said. What are some good examples of, both well-known brands and companies that have been practicing this maybe for years or decades, or any examples of new age companies that you see in our part of the world?
Mm-hmm. Plenty. We have an award called SL25, Steward Leadership 25. Every year, we select the 25 best or most promising, financially viable examples of solutions and across Asia Pacific, and we recognize them and give them an award, and then we publish them, et cetera, so that others can get encouraged. So there's plenty of examples. Let me give you some well-known names. In Asia, the Tata Group out of India, 155 years of profitable growth. Right from day one, the founder, Jamshedji Tata, said that we exist to serve society. And if we serve society, we will make money in the long run. Right? Before the first steel plant was built in what is today called Jamshedpur, he built hospitals, he built schools, he built community parks. Not because he was giving away money for philanthropy, because he realized that if we create a township, then people will come and live here. And then people will come and work here. Otherwise, who will move here? Right? So they've been doing it for 155 years. Every Tata company, that's the ethos. What's the human problem we are trying to solve? Let's go down to the West now. There's a 270-year-old company in Germany called FaberCastell, the pencil makers, right? Again, from day one, sustainability first strategies, environmental and social. In the 1980s, people were declaring pencils as a sunset industry, that industry is going to die. Who's using pencils anymore? Everything is going digital. And at this juncture, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to invest in sustainable forestry in Brazil, so that 20 years later, as the trees grow up, all the wood needed for their pencils would come from sustainably certified forests. Now, when the industry is dying, why would you do that? They said, no, industry won't die. We won't let it die. We will innovate. And they innovated. They got into cosmetics. They got into high-end products. There's even a pencil they sell today which sells for $250. It's called the Perfect Pencil.
Right.
And the company is very much alive and kicking. You see, and 100% all the wood comes from certified forests. Let me give you one last small example. I met this gentleman in Denver, Colorado last year. His company is called Plastic to Green, plastic2green.com. What he does is he collects plastic waste from the oceans and converts it into ammonia in a zero oxygen environment.
Wow.
So, A, you're cleaning the ocean. B, you're creating fuel, which is used both as fuel as well as fertilizer. And they do it in a zero oxygen environment so that the process doesn't pollute even more. So my point being, innovation for profitable solutions, that's going to save the world. And there's plenty of good people who are thinking like this.
Any examples closer to home in Singapore, Southeast Asia?
Oh, for sure. Singtel's Optus, which is the Australia arm, they use their mobile network for massive literacy on cybersecurity. There's this small little company in Singapore called Forward Coffee.
Right.
Beautiful story. Most of the people they employ are people with special abilities.
Yeah.
And yet they are in business and doing well and growing.
So what I'm hearing is, you spoke about maximizing profit. And clearly, I think the other thing that you articulated very well is it stems from innovation, not from an afterthought saying, hey, we have made some profit, let's do some charitable act to sort of cover up.
Definitely not. Yes, innovation is the engine that will drive the profitable solutions, right? But it stems from purpose. Purpose comes first. That means it's about intentionality.
Yeah.
So steward leadership, again, is the genuine desire and persistence. And the keywords are genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future for stakeholders, society, future generations, and the environment. And then comes the innovation, and then comes the persistence to push it through.
And the examples that you quoted, if I juxtapose that with the idea of genuine desire, deliberation, and intention, I'm guessing in a lot of the examples you quoted, it stems from the founder or the leader, the Jamshedji Tatas and the the other sort of patrons. Are there examples where that is not necessarily the case, that it could be an idea from a middle management or someone low down in the ranks?
Yes and no. You see, whether you are a founder or whether you are an existing company, steward leadership must come from the top. Because if there's no steward leadership at the top, the people below don't have the conditions in which to thrive.
Right.
Now, once the intention at the top is clear, we are not doing ESG just to check the box and just to look good window dressing. We're doing it because we believe in it, right? Then people down the line will come up with ideas. Then you create innovation engines and encourage people to innovate, and then lots of great ideas will come through. But if the intention at the top is not the right intention, even though people who want to do something, they will find it incredibly difficult. So there are clients of mine that I work with where, like in this case, an insurance company, right? They said to their staff that we are serious about this, and everybody is encouraged to innovate, and they had an innovation challenge.
Right.
And this lady in Brazil actually came up with an insurance policy where you could, 10% of the premium that you pay will be paid to your charity of choice and is no more expensive than the competitor product. And they made more money doing it. Why? Because people said, if I'm buying the same policy, why don't I do this? So the volumes gave them a huge lift up.
Right.
And so it was profitable for the company, and it was happy, customer happy, company happy, society happy.
But
this came from,
as you rightly said, it came bottom up, but the condition was created top down.
You have to. Because if the conditions are not created by the top, there will be obstacles.
Talking about that intentionality, there's a school of thought that, it's only when you measure certain things or you have the right KPIs, it drives intention and action. Your thoughts, do you agree, disagree?
So I'm smiling because, there is this management mantra that has been drilled into our heads by every business school in the world. What gets measured gets done. Please, my humble request is take that with a huge spoon of salt, not just with a pinch of salt. I have found, and by the way, not me, researchers, management thinkers have told us for decades, focusing too much on measurement, reporting, and incentives will actually give you bad behavior. If you reduce everything to a number, then people will try to achieve the number, come what may.
Sure.
Right? Whether good behavior or bad behavior. All the greenwashing that you were seeing is because of that, because we had reduced everything to a number. So the backlash against DEI and ESG, frankly, was coming for a long time not because the idea of DEI is bad, not because the idea of ESG is bad, but because of the way we were practicing it. Root cause is, I think, this mantra, what gets measured gets done. The measurement and the reporting becomes the end in itself, not the means.
Yeah.
So you have to be incredibly careful. I'm not saying we shouldn't have KPIs and we shouldn't have metrics, but be very careful what you're measuring and how you're measuring. There's plenty of research on this which says that in every walk of life, not just in business, in government, in military, in medicine, right? You hope to reward A while hoping for B, which means that you hope for certain kind of behavior, but the number encourages another behavior. We have to tweak our measures as people begin to game the system.
Today, the whole world's woken up to these insane debates about tariffs and markets are tanking. And I'm sure CEOs or founders who are watching this, everyone's worried about quarterly results. Like it or not, there is, whether you measure or not, I think our brains are also wired to also look at short-term sort of existential crisis. And in the environment that we're operating in, not specifically only to tariffs, but this sort of instinct to sort of optimize for short term, any examples or contrarian examples that, where you sort of see that we should not be drowning in this short-termism? Anything that we could do?
Yes, human nature. As we were talking earlier, why should I consume less? Why should I sacrifice? That's all human nature. We want everything quickest possible, and we want it with the least possible effort. But that's not how steward leaders think. Steward leadership requires a default wiring in the brain that is totally opposite of the default. And one of the key tenets of steward leadership is long-term view. Right. So with all this, you have to have the courage. You have to have a conviction that, yes, I want to do well by doing good. My purpose will actually create profit for me and serve the world. And with that, you find the courage to move forward, right? So when several examples, Tata, as we talked about, they've always thought long term. They think in generations, not in quarters and years. Paul Polman, the former CEO of Unilever, On his first day at work, he said, I'm not going to give Wall Street guidance anymore. No more quarterly guidance.
That's insane courage, isn't it?
Yeah, totally insane courage. And he told hedge funds, if you're looking for quick returns here, take your money and go. I don't need you. So who says that short-termism is the only way possible? In fact, our current research at Stewardship Asia Center, we are looking at companies that have lived for more than 100 years. By the way, the average age of a company these days, of a business these days, is 18 years. So we're looking at companies that have survived beyond 100.
Yeah.
Say, what's common? And we're seeing a clear linkage between steward leadership and longevity. And long-term view is one of the 5 or 6 key tenets of steward leadership.
If we have these good sort of examples, given mimetic theory and, given case studies and, future generations learning from these, why is it that it's not common for people to follow these?
Because of something a gentleman called Wilfredo Pareto taught us in 1906. The Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
You see, you will never have a situation where everybody buys into this. It's always 80-20. And the good news is if 20% of the people create 80% of the magic. And the theory of 80-20 is that you take anything in life, it's the 20 that creates the magic. And the reasons for something happening is because of the 20%, not because of the 80%, right? Whether it's software or whether it's technology or whether it's anything. So I don't think we will ever have more than 20% of the people who believe in this stuff, but that's okay. As long as 20% of us believe in steward leadership and in the notion of doing well by doing good, we're good. We'll be fine. We will save the world. So let's not try to, I think assuming that we can convince everybody is a fallacy.
That's a good way to manage expectations and also give us a reality check. Let's switch gears to your work at Stewardship Asia Center. Give us a background as to why was this set up, what kind of work that you do, how do you sort of cater to those 20% folks who want to make a change but don't know how or where to start from?
The reason why Stewardship Asia Center exists is we want to promote this notion of doing well by doing good.
Right.
And we were very disillusioned by what was happening around the world. There is over $40 trillion in ESG assets.
Yeah.
But how much is going towards impact? Hardly any. Every country is coming up with more and more stiffer regulation. But what was regulation achieving? Nothing, pretty much. There were people finding loopholes, right? Then in the business community, giving incentives, linking CEO compensation to ESG markers, and again, reducing everything to a number. But we were not seeing progress at all. So we said, why? And then we said, okay, let's look at those companies that are doing very well by doing good, the ones we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We studied 100 of those and we developed a model. What's common between them? How is it that they do well by doing good?
Yeah.
And that model was steward leadership, which basically boiled down to you have to believe in 5 specific values. Interdependence. The idea that the more I give, the more I will receive. My success is intertwined with that of yours and society. Long-term view, which we talked about.
Yeah.
Ownership mentality. I choose to run my life and my business the steward leadership way. I want to do well, but I want to do well by doing good.
Yeah.
And the 4th is creative resilience. We will innovate until we find the right profitable solutions. And it's okay if we fail 8 out of 10 times. And finally, the 5th value is ethical integrity. Not just integrity, ethical integrity. Because integrity to most people is not breaking the law. That's not enough.
Right.
You see, just because you're not lying doesn't mean you're telling the truth. And the laws about the use of AI and things like that we are creating today will be written 5 to 10 years from now. It's up to us to think of the ethical angle. If I produce a weapon of mass destruction using AI and deliver it autonomously, what are the ethics of that? That's ethical integrity. So those 5 values. And then the final piece of steward leadership is based on those values. What is that collective better future I want to create? The purpose of my life and my business. What is that collective better future where everybody benefits? And that's at the core. We call it the steward leadership compass. And we find that these companies basically make every decision through the compass. Mars, the confectionery company, for example, has their own Mars compass. Right? They give training to all new hires that when you're stuck, look at the compass and solve problems like that.
Right.
And spend the last 10 minutes of every meeting looking at the compass and say, did we make any decisions that were against our compass? If so, revisit.
Right.
At Stewardship Asia, we go to market with this model and with this practical tools of how to live and run your business with steward leadership through education, through events, through online engagement. We are now reaching out to schools and colleges so that we can catch them young.
Beautiful.
So those are the kind of things we do.
Let's unpack that compass that you spoke about. Let's imagine a situation that you're meeting a company or a CEO or someone on the board where nothing of this sort is happening today, right? Uninitiated or maybe even skeptical, right? And you probably have a dialogue, you probably have a workshop. What's the starting point in terms of who should own this problem or this viewpoint in the company? What are the first 2 or 3 steps? Assuming I'm that CEO you're meeting, I'm a skeptic. What are the first 2 or 3 things I should do, given that today I'm operating on short-term thinking? I'm thinking about fundraise, exits, my next paycheck, my bonus. And I'm just skeptical given the macroeconomic conditions, the geopolitical environment we operate in. What should be my sort of first 2, 3 things that I should reflect upon?
See, the first thing is deciding. It's the choice. It's that ownership mentality. Do I want to do well by doing good? Do I want to make money any which way, quick as possible, because I'm going to be CEO for 3 years and then the board is probably going to ask me to leave. So I better maximize returns and I go with the trend. And even though it's not right for society, I'm going to just do it or am I looking in the mirror and say, no, I genuinely want to do what steward leadership asks me to do.
Right.
Because you can't force that into somebody.
Sure.
So what we do is we start with awareness building. We show you many, many, many examples of steward leaders who've done well by doing good, who've made pots of money and made society better at the same time. In fact, they made money by making society or our planet better.
Right.
And the first step is, are you convinced?
Yeah.
And then, like any other business, you innovate until you get it right. You make mistakes. You have obstacles. Short term, you may have to do some things a little bit differently.
Sure.
But as long as your longer term picture is the same, goal is the same, you keep course correcting, you keep pivoting, like anything else you would do in life.
There's realization, there's awakening. What's the next step to institutionalize that philosophy? Do you reckon, are there examples where you hire a chief steward or just the leader himself has to be a steward? How do you institutionalize this?
So first of all, the leader has to decide that I am a steward leader. Surround herself or himself with a leadership team that also believes in those values and that purpose, right? Yeah. The next step is to build a culture and DNA of steward leadership. Now you incorporate those values into your culture, right? And reward and punish based on that. First of all, walking the talk is super important because humans are hierarchical. We look upon the authorities, see how they are behaving, and that gives us clues on how to behave. How do you reward people who live up these values, who create a collective better future? And how do you punish those who don't? And you're going to weed out the non-believers and make that culture strong. And only when the culture is really, really strong will magic happen all the time. In 2008, when there was a terrorist attack in Mumbai, the Taj Hotel, where people were having dinner and suddenly machine gun bullets started to fly, not a single Taj employee actually ran for their own life. They formed human rings around customers. Now, what bonus scheme and incentive scheme can incentivize you to take a bullet in your chest? But that's exactly what was happening there. That was 155 years of culture in the making. So then the next step is to build a culture around the compass and train people. There will always be bad behavior.
Sure.
People will get tempted by short-term gains. But over time, you've got to watch that and you've got to try to weed that out as much as possible.
What training or what incentive can get you ready for that? Either you sort of have that inculcated over the years or you don't.
And I think it comes down to the walk the talk. They see that happening throughout the organization at the top levels and they say, yeah, I feel empowered to live the values. I don't have to be a slave of the rules and policies. I, as a junior employee, can do what's right for the world because I know my bosses will appreciate it. That confidence needs to be there.
Yeah.
That's called culture in action.
Yeah. And I've read a few of your pieces where you speak about, there being a challenge in the G of ESG, and that sort of needs to be replaced or transformed into the L. Tell us more and give us some examples of what's the issue, because every company I've worked for, advised, there are rules, guidance, policies, regulation, but clearly that's not enough.
You see, if you look at all the leadership and management literature for the last few hundred years, right?
Yeah.
All those processes were designed to do one thing: maximize control over human resources.
Right.
So, and policies, rules, and procedures give you control. It's the easier way to manage people.
Yeah.
Steward leaders don't think like that. They say, these are the values, make decisions based on values. Now, that requires courage.
Yeah.
Because it is left to interpretation, it's left to judgment. But I'll give you an example. When you do it right, magic happens. Netflix company had a travel and entertainment policy which gave detailed guidance on how much money to spend, where, breakfast, lunch, dinner, which hotel to stay, what economy class, business class, blah, 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 blah. One fine day, they threw it out of the window and said the new policy is act in Netflix best interest. One line.
So it moves from control to giving ownership.
Total freedom and empowerment. Travel and entertainment expenses went down, not up. Because now people felt, wow, they've given me responsibility. I better be good at this.
Yeah.
And by the way, they were not weak in any way. They made it very clear that if you misuse the trust we've given you, there'll be no conversation. There will be no second chances. Right. Out.
Yeah.
With freedom comes responsibility. I've always operated on that principle. Give people the freedom to do what they think is right. Freedom within the framework. This is our purpose. These are our values. When in doubt, refer to the compass.
And wherever you've sort of intervene to change those guidance policies, regulations to something far more simpler, how difficult or easy is the change management? Because even the people who have been sort of governed with control, suddenly if there's a change, how do they respond?
So change is always difficult, right? Any change is difficult. And that's where the leadership skill comes in. And the biggest skill is patience. Expect trouble. The moment you say, I want to change from A to B, anything, right? You want to create a better future, but people like the certainty of today more than the uncertainty of tomorrow. So you have to be patient. You have to take people along, and that's the tedious task of leadership.
And on the contrary, negative examples of too much governance and rule-bound sort of operations of control. Have you seen negative examples?
The famous example, 5 or 6 years ago, there was a video that went viral of United Airlines staff beating up a passenger and dragging him out of the plane in a bloodied state. It was a regular short-haul flight in the United States. It was overbooked. Now, the rule book says, offer $400 incentive for anybody to give up their seat. Nobody gave up their seat that day. The rule book says, step 2, if nobody gives up the seat, is to pick somebody at random and ask them to leave. And you're protected by the fine print and the law to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So they picked up this guy, Dr. David Dow, who needed to go somewhere urgently. And the guy said, no, I won't leave. I have an emergency. I'm a medical doctor. So that would be breaking the law, sir. I can't break the rule. You're Mr. Random. He said, no, do whatever you want. I'm not going to leave. I bought my ticket. I came on time. I'm on my seat. I'm not leaving. But this is unfair. So they beat him up and dragged him out. Because they thought they were upholding company policy.
Which technically is true.
Which is true. And you know what the worst part of the story is? When the video went viral, the CEO didn't apologize. He said, my employees did nothing wrong. Now, if instead of being compelled to follow stated company policy or rules, if they had been empowered to follow stated company values, would they have worked harder to find a different solution? Heck yes. Because you think for 30 seconds, you know the solution is very clear. Nobody's taking 400, give them 500, give them 600, offer 1,000, 2,000, somebody will take it. But no, they did not feel empowered to live according to the values. They felt compelled to follow the rule.
So in terms of traits, is it something that, like you said, look in the mirror, is it something that either it's there or not there? Or is it something that can be learned and you've seen people actually sort of change?
Yeah, so the question is, are steward leaders born or made?
Yeah.
Definitely made. A leader in you is born, but not at the time of your biological birth. It means that a leader in you is born when two things happen simultaneously. One, you feel deeply about the inadequacies of current reality. Something about today bothers you so much that you say, this is not good. And two, you decide to do something about it.
Yeah.
When those two things happen together, that's when the steward leader in you is born. And it's got nothing to do with genetics. Look at all the dynasties, whether political or business dynasties, actually it goes in the reverse direction, right? So it's got nothing to do with genetics.
That's good news. Does that also mean that people who are predisposed or who crave for fame or legacy are, predisposed to this more than someone who's, just wants to make money and move on? Because I want to be seen to be a good leader or seen to be a steward?
Well, again, fame, and you use the word fame and legacy together. Are you looking for fame or are you looking for legacy? I have nothing against people wanting to be rich and famous and powerful.
Sure.
But what is the legacy? If you want to be rich and famous by making the world a better place, where's the problem?
Sure.
Where's the problem? But if you just simply want to be rich, like you ask a lot of young people in Silicon Valley and in developing countries today who are in the tech space, what do you want to do with your life? I want to be a unicorn. I said, that was not my question. That's a great answer, but to a different question.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you that. That what your financial state is going to be. What do you want to do with your life? I want to be a unicorn. That's the wrong answer. I want to do this, that, and the other. And by the way, by doing that, I want to create a unicorn.
Sure.
Perfect. No problem. I don't have a problem with self-centered goals at all. I don't have a problem with greed. I don't have a problem with self-interest. But remember that your self-interest is intertwined with that of the rest of the world. It's called interdependence. Gone are the days you can operate in a vacuum.
You spoke about young people, and we sort of read about this millennials versus Gen Z versus Gen Alpha and Beta. Is there research to suggest that younger people are quote unquote woke and more predisposed to being better stewards of the planet?
A lot of people believe that young people, for them, meaning is more important than money.
Yeah.
Because you see, if you were growing up, my generation in the post-colonial East, financial stability was the most important thing.
Sure.
And if you were growing up in the post-depression West, same thing, the baby boomers, right? The logic is that a lot of the youngsters today are born with silver spoons, and therefore meaning is more important than money. Personally, I don't see any evidence of that. I think humans are humans. And there are people amongst the young people who are very purpose-oriented, and there are those who are very greed-oriented and don't care about where it comes from. I don't think we can generalize. I think every generation has similar issues.
Again, I guess your Pareto Principle applies to any generation.
Absolutely.
Going back to the compass, interdependence, how do you sort of describe that in a corporate or a startup environment? How does the leader or the founder sort of think of interdependence when it comes to stewardship?
Very simple. Win-win thinking rather than win-lose thinking. What is the pain point? If I provide a solution, how much maximum can I squeeze out so that I can maximize my profit to the hilt?
Yeah.
I don't care what the repercussions are. That's win-lose thinking.
Yeah.
Win-win thinking is, I want to be here for 100 years, 150 years. And so how can I make lives better and make money at the same time? That's interdependence.
And the interdependence is not just a function of the business and the customer, because let's take an example like quick commerce, suddenly in vogue, in countries like India. Clearly, we know that it's not probably the best thing for the planet. Also for the customer, because maybe, yes, I can order a banana and get it in 5 minutes, but maybe I'm cultivating bad habits and, the business is making money. So I suppose what you're trying to say is you have to look at multiple stakeholders and then weave that interdependence.
That's where interdependence and ethical integrity play a role. So the compass values are all intertwined. Ethical integrity says, don't just look at what's right or wrong by law or by accepted norms of society today. Because when you're innovating and creating new models, the laws haven't been written yet. The norms haven't been written yet.
Yeah.
Right? You have to think ahead. Yeah, it may not be wrong as per the law, but is it ethical? So ethical integrity. And then make a choice. Right? Today, the biggest use of AI is in weapons of mass destruction. Social media companies are using AI to promote hate because that's what sells. Your algorithm says maximize engagement. Good news doesn't maximize engagement.
Certainly not.
And so you have a choice. How am I using that technology? And that's where the interdependence idea and ethical integrity, that if I did this, what would be the repercussion to society? And can I choose some other way to make money? The same technology which is creating autonomous weapons is also creating limbs for prosthetic limbs, which now can read muscle signals and get people who are amputees a new life.
Yeah.
What choice do you want to make with your genius? Will everybody make the choice? Heck no. We'll be amazing if 20% actually make the choice.
Right. Rajiv, you obviously live in America, you travel to Asia, you work here, you travel the world. Just like the conversation around generations, have you seen a distinctive difference between quote unquote Western capitalistic environments versus Eastern philosophies where, again, there is some literature saying the Oriental world perhaps naturally are predisposed to longer term perspectives, more empathy, or again, does the Pareto principle hold there?
A lot of people believe that Eastern cultures are a lot more community oriented, Western cultures are a lot more me oriented. Then the other notion that when it comes to stewardship is that family owned businesses are naturally more inclined to be good stewards. I have seen none of this to be true, to be honest. I find great stewardship in the West, and I see horrible examples in the West. I see great stewardship in the East and also horrible examples in the East.
Yeah.
Right? And family businesses, some family businesses clearly are very good at thinking in terms of steward leadership. And equally, I see family businesses that are doing all the wrong things. So I think these kinds of generalizations, I know people love to make them. Because they make for great talks and great 2x2 grids with which people explain.
But not
honestly,
true.
It's the 80-20 universally. There are good people in all parts of the world, and there are people who shouldn't be doing what they are doing in all parts of the world.
You spoke about, a lot of the work that you guys are doing is also about catching folks young, going to schools and colleges. Does the modern business education need a complete revamp?
Definitely. We are trying to solve for existential challenges by throwing money at it, by throwing incentives at it, and by throwing regulation at it. And that's the reason why it's not working. As we spoke earlier, we are going against human nature.
Yeah.
The thing we need to do more than anything else is education and awareness. And right from our school and college education to our executive education has to change. And by the way, yes, I do believe that the traditional MBA program, as we've known it, the days are numbered.
Stewardship Asia, one question around the fact that obviously it's Temasek backed, it's in Singapore. Do you your thoughts on nations as stewards?
Yes.
And specifically Singapore, what have you seen Singapore do better or different?
Brilliant example of state stewardship. And Mr. Lee Kuan Yew was clearly a steward leader. But clearly when you're doing this, any leader, leave alone a steward leader, you can't make everybody happy. Steve Jobs said it best, right? If you want everybody to love you and you want to make everybody happy, don't be a leader, sell ice cream, right? So I'm a huge fan of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew because that is a phenomenal, look at the Singapore miracle, right? When the secession happened, when they separated from Malaysia, per capita income was what? A few hundreds?
Yeah.
It's $87,000 today. That is the miracle. And that is based on the idea of a collective better future. Singapore particularly has had this belief in tripartism, where government, management, and the working class work together. Scandinavian countries do that very well as well. Again, I think it boils down to not because it's country A is better than country B. It is the leader at the time or leaders at a given time in a given country. But yes, of course, a leader like Mr. Lee Kuan Yew sets the tone for many generations to come. And that's the power of steward leadership.
And clearly they have institutionalized that.
Absolutely. Remember we were talking earlier, first is I want to be, second, I will institutionalize it. And this is a phenomenal example. And many, I think UAE is another great example of steward leadership. Abu Dhabi, Dubai, these rulers are amazing. Look at what Dubai used to be 30 years ago. It was a fishing village, and look where it is today.
Fantastic. So clearly we've seen examples right from individuals to corporates to startups to private companies to family businesses to nations. Now, Rajiv, as we come to the end of our session, I would love your thoughts for the global Thai community. There are about 15,000 of us, mostly entrepreneurs, investors, corporate leaders. Any call to action, people who are watching, literally who are watching the episode on YouTube or listening on Spotify, what can they do now? What should they do now as a next step? Whether they are a founder, a research scientist or an investor, what's the next step that you would want them to take?
Two things. One, individually. Look in the mirror today and ask yourself, what legacy will I leave? What will my children be proud of me for? Because this notion that I want to give my children the best of love, the best of education, so one day they're very able and do great things and will make me proud of them. No. What are you going to do today to make your children proud of you? So that they feel like, my dad or my mom did such great things. I want to walk in their footsteps and maybe I want to make them proud of me. So that's the first thing. What legacy? I will live on this planet for 80, 90, 100 years. What will happen as a result? So decide whether you want to be a steward leader. And secondly, as a Thai community, help spread the word that there is a better way to make money. There's a better way to live. And that is steward leadership. the genuine desire and persistence to create a collective better future. Let's join hands, because to even get to that 20% that we were talking about, we need to create massive awareness.
And any particular resource, video, book, author, beyond, of course, the 4 books you have published, anything that they can sort of further find more material?
Yes, there is a website called stewardshipcommons.com.
Right.
That is something that we created a couple of years ago, and it is a crowdsourced platform.
Okay.
Think of it as Wikipedia meets LinkedIn.
Right.
But only focused on environmental and social sustainability and steward leadership. So if you have some innovative ideas, anybody, you can become a contributor. You can upload a video, you can upload an audio, you can upload an article.
And you can talk about the change maybe that you're already driving?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you want to just consume the information, become a user. So it's totally crowdsourced content.
Yeah.
It's free for the world. We want it to become the world's biggest melting pot for content and community on steward leadership. And there's already 70,000 people on it. We only launched it less than 2 years ago. And every week we are gaining a few people, a few thousand. And there's 600 contributors today. So that's something that you can share and consume information on.
Rajiv, this has been fascinating. I've been so privileged to meet with you a few times, read your work, listen to you. Thank you so much for joining us. The least I would say is, as TIE, obviously we would be partners for SL25, but as we were discussing earlier, we would want to sort of come together to find out how do we not just spread the word, but also walk the talk. And I think what I personally take back for my organizations and the TIE community is, I think once we get that awareness, I think we sort of need to sort of also institutionalize in the company so that this is sustainable, because you speak about sustainability. And I think hopefully many of us also do this with a long-term view. So there's so much for us to sort of chew on. We would definitely love to continue the partnership. Just once again, heartfelt thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you.